responsibilities as nations in the world, as nations which are developing. Now the question we want to pose is, if we go on a different development pathways, would that affect growth? And would that affect poverty alleviation? Now we all know in our own countries we have a system of injustice where the rich have 5 cars and pollute the air and the poor don't even have a motorbike. So that we have to address at the national level as well. We need to address that at the national level as well. But we also need to address the climate injustice at the international level, because that is where the root cause is at this point in time. Now, in the negotiations, as I was saying, that there have been proposals put on the table, and these proposals have been sort of ignored or tried to be sidelined, and every time, Nicola said, every time the North would put new issues on the table, which I was a bit confused, yeah, and they have not come out so far with real commitments. When we had less than a year, if we are to finish this negotiation by Copenhagen in December, COP15, they have not really put on the table what commitments they are willing to undertake. And if the North is not showing the leadership, why should China, India, Indonesia, Brazil, show leadership? Okay? And which they did. I mean, at the national level, a lot of countries are thinking about climate change and are thinking about development pathways which are different. China, for instance, has started to develop wind technology for alternative renewable sources of energy. We all can think about alternative energies. At the national level, we all need to work together at the national level and at the regional level to think of this alternative development pathways. And that would be our leadership, both at the national level, regional and international. We need to look at that. But we also need to convince people that the leadership must come from those who are polluted in the first place and those who have the money. And the money is actually available. Look at the bailout that the US is doing to all these banks. And it comes to $700 million, $1 billion. So the money is there. It's just that they're not sharing it with the right programs for saving our Earth. So this is the nuance of the negotiation at the UNFCCC. And it will go on, and this will be the toughest year because people are striving towards this Copenhagen meeting and trying to strike a deal. And there are various blocks in the negotiations, which I won't bore you with the detail with. There are some tensions between the small island states and the OPEC countries, for instance, who are existing. I mean, these are the things that happen. But as developing countries, we have shown we are able to lead because we put proposals on the table. Now, by G77 and China as a group, developing countries, there are various proposals. One is on the financial mechanism. How would we finance a different development pathway, and how would we finance adaptation for the poorest and small island countries? There's a proposal on technology mechanism, including what to do about intellectual property rights, how do we transfer technology, how we develop climate-friendly technology, how we diffuse it. These are all on the table. The principles are there. They are now also developing a paper on a shared vision about the goals, how do we visualize our life beyond 2012 in terms of climate. So it's there on the table. You can look it up in the website of the UNFCCC. Okay, so it's
developing countries agree that they're going to do reduction as well?
No. The obligation is not in the convention. Let me make that very clear. The responsibility of developing countries is to shift to a development pathway that would not harm the climate more. So if there is to be a reduction, it must come, the commitment is on the Annex 1 countries to reduce the greenhouse gas. Okay? That is the current position. It does not mean that we do not want to be responsible for the pollution that we're also creating. It means that as long as there is no other development pathway, as long as there is no decoupling about greenhouse gas emission and development, then we also need that development space. When I am an environmentalist, I will be the first one to say I also want clean air when I walk on the streets, yeah? But in order that we have to have clean air, we must have safe and clean public transportation, so you don't have to use so many cars. How do you manage that kind of technology? You know, how do you do this? That has to be put into account. So the commitment is that we will. There's a. Can you remind me? There's an acronym for this. Sustainable Development Measures, SDMs or something like that. So that is being negotiated as well. That we go on a sustainable development policy measures. Sustainable development policy measures. So our policies in developing countries, the way we develop must be changed in a way which does not add up to the greenhouse gases. Something like that. Okay? Now, having said on the international negotiations, now what do we do as civil society and in our own countries and in ASEAN? I think the first thing we need to look at is something like the discussion before this, which is on energy security. We must never overlook that millions of people in ASEAN still do not have access to energy. Yeah, and in whatever way we talk about climate change, we must not forget that should also be the goal. Yeah? Now, what kind of energy to be accessed by the poor is something that we all need to think about, the alternatives. You know, a lot of our groups are looking at biogas in combination with sustainable agriculture. So we all can plan along the local level in that sense. How do you secure energy and food security together as part of the scheme and then provide energy? And then at the national level, we need to look at the first impact assessment. Some countries, I know Cambodia, for instance, has a national action plan on adaptation, yeah, on how they would adapt to that. Whether that is implemented or not is a different story. I mean, many of our countries have these nice plans that are never implemented, yeah? So we need to look into those plans and then see how they are relevant today and how we can implement them. Then at the national level, we can suggest that the ASEAN Secretariat, with the approval of the countries, do an impact assessment of ASEAN and an ASEAN climate change adaptation plan. That is important, you know, that is our leadership, that we're taking this seriously and how do we go along with that. And the adaptation planning would also mean how much of the energy will be renewable and what sort of technologies do we need and where we get the technologies for that renewable energy sources. So, away from the UNFCCC, we have to realize as a nation and as a group of nations that this is an issue that we have to work on, away from the negotiations, whether the negotiations come or not. You know, many of our countries do have smaller islands, and I've been telling my government that Indonesia is a group of small islands as well as big islands. And we could be losing all of this, a few of these islands in the fight of climate change. So what do we do? How do we adapt to that kind of situation? That is something that we need to work together on. At the advocacy level, we need to continue doing what we do, which is to advocate for a policy of cleaner energy, cleaner industry, public transport, forest conservation, organic agriculture. So let us not think of climate change as away from all the issues that we've been working on so far. And also from the justice issues of people having access to the resources. That is part of the whole package when we talk about policy issues. At the ASEAN UNFCCC, of course ASEAN doesn't have a legal grouping in the UNFCCC, that's why it's part of the G77 in China. But there can be an ASEAN position for some of the negotiations if that is possible. I don't know in a short period of time if the aim is Copenhagen. It's quite a short period to have some sort of, at least if not a position, common principles of how we deal with the UNFCCC negotiations based on the realities of ASEAN. We need to look into that. But my hunch is that Copenhagen will not be the last. I don't think Copenhagen will achieve what it has set out to achieve, looking at the way the negotiations have been going on. But we still need to look beyond 2012 as well, beyond 2009 into the 2012 and post-2012 issues, and how we make sure that the negotiations will come up with agreements that will not harm the development space of ASEAN, but at the same time will put ASEAN on a development pathway which is more climate friendly and which is more justice-based. So we have a lot of homework, but my message is that this is also part of the everyday things that we do anyway, whether you work on human rights, whether you work on agriculture, whether you work on sustainable public transport, it's all part of the whole package. It's just that we need to understand it more, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Hira. At this point, we've heard the opinions of people who have been involved in the FCCC negotiations. There are a number of issues there. I'm now open to people have any questions at the moment. What do we think would be the crucial issues that we could raise with ASEAN? Now, Hira has pointed out at ASEAN level, it could be ASEAN vis-a-vis the UNFCCC negotiation, but at the same time, there's also ASEAN as a platform for like policy, how to shift development, decouple, into climate-friendly development. We have talked earlier in this workshop on energy security, and it would be horrified to know that ASEAN has a huge energy development plan by 2020 that involves coal-fired power plants, gas, and nuclear. So it's like, it doesn't look like ASEAN is going for climate-friendly development. So any issues you want to raise now, what do you think are really important issues? Yes, sure. Just introduce yourself as well.
Okay, good morning everyone. My name is Lan from Vietnam. So I think that it is really urgent need to talk about how to find a solution to set up, human rights framework or something to think about climate. And from my organization experience. So I think that when I read the 13 calling points from the paper, so I pick up that in the objective, you want to see how intergenerations equality between our future right. So I think that maybe the title of the mission should name the future right mechanism toward multinational, multi-continental company toward 3 issues. The first is a really important according to mining. As they dig the natural resources under the ground within a billion years to regenerate. And the second, I think, is hydropower across the river of the different nations. And the third one, it is resulting from the first and second, is we call that the concept of plantation. So, commercial plantation, forest plantation coming from the first 2. And I think that focus on mining and hydropower, because it's mining, the capitalists, they digging the nature diversity, they killing people diversity, culture identity, and they stolen almost future right. So I think that I consider now within 2 hours, and we are now sitting together to initiating the very innovation concept. So we should focus to share, to contribute the ideas, the vision, the solution, the strategy, the experience and case study among yourselves, and set up framework and continues it by maybe later on with among Skype, among internet, to set up assembly for mechanism of identity for the future. Thank you.
So you brought up the issue of intergenerational justice, and definitely
It's here for people to go near to the mic, go to you. Just go there.
Thank you. Next person,
Hello, my name is Vichun from organization called Mekong Energy and Equality Network. Actually, I just part of the previous workshop on energy, but I would like to raise maybe a question or concerns that, I mean, according to the ASEAN Vision 2020, the program area number 3 is about coal. I mean, actually the program number 1 is about power grid. And number 2 is about the Trans-Asian gas pipeline. With the number 1 and number 2, from the energy point of, I mean, the people who work on the energy point of view can see clearly that that is very strong centralization will promoting the oversupply, and that's is very much based on the interest of the energy industry and the industry that consume heavy energy. But I have to mention the program number 3 on coal, which is the ASEAN has stated on their report, I will quote, The number one, strengthen the institution and policy framework to promote coal. The number two, promote clean coal technology. This is, I have to say, actually there are no clean coal. The clean coal is something, is a myth, is a commercial brand name, right? And they say promoting private sector investment, which is, if you follow the issue of the coal-fired power plant investment in ASEAN, especially in Thailand, you will know that a part of that investment, you have to also investment on mining, coal mining in Indonesia or in Australia, right, to transport coal to supply for the coal-fired power plant in Thailand or in other countries in the region, right? So coal trade is also a very strong link in ASEAN and in Australia. So this is something, I mean, people who work on climate, I think you should know that the most serious is burning coal, right? That is the most problem. And how can we, allow the ASEANs to promoting using coal, right? Within the climate context. And also I will maybe mention that the issue of are people in the region still lacking of the electricity? I would say that electricity is like, if you can compare, it's like a transportation car, right? You don't need a Cadillac or a big truck, right, to carry or working in the small village, right? You need maybe just, what they call in Thailand, itan. It's a very simple car that can carry agriculture product, right? And they can use a local biomass or biofuel, right? So, and there are a lot of areas that we can make the people in the rural area in ASEAN to have electricity. There are many ways that ASEAN can reduce the emission that produced by products, I mean electricity. And there are huge potential of the energy conservation, which is good for everyone, right? And cheap, that we can doing that for the, the solution for the climate change. So I would say that shall we make some statement for ASEAN on the ASEAN Vision 2020, and shall we turn down the program on number 1, number 2, number 3, especially the coal one, right? And saying that they should stop promoting this. Thank you.
Hi, my name is. Good afternoon. My name is Shailendra Yashwant from Greenpeace Southeast Asia. I shared your frustration, the panel's frustration with the UNFCCC process. I share the anger that a lot of people feel whenever we are discussing the UNFCCC process. Unfortunately, that's the only process that exists to combat climate change, or at least we hope. Well, the first commitment period has failed. There are enough examples for that, and we are hoping that aggressive second commitment period would solve some of the problem. Having said that, I just want to bring your attention to the fact that ASEAN in 2008, this is the ASEAN European meeting in November 2008, and before that, the East Asia Summit in 2007 September in Singapore. The 2007 Singapore Declaration and the 2008 ASEAN Declaration both recognize UNFCCC to be the body that will combat climate change. These are ASEAN country leaders statements, and in both these statements, everything that we've always wanted or demanded has already been reflected. I have copies of those statements on a stick, I can send it to you. But what the civil society is demanding is already reflected in the ASEAN vision, so to speak. So, coming back to what we are discussing here today, I think we should revisit these two declarations and ensure that the ASEAN leaders meeting at the summit next weekend and 3 months later and 6 months later with their +3 partners at least adhere to what is being said already. That's number one. And both these statements are available online on the ASEAN website as well. Number two, referring back to what Nicola was saying on the discussion on RED, one big gaping loophole, one big problem with the RED discussion currently is that there is no consultation with the indigenous communities, especially from our region. There are some representations there. And to keep my intervention short, I think that's one thing we can already ask ASEAN is how do we put in mechanisms for including indigenous community leaders, a larger participation of groups that are also working on biodiversity. It's not only about us, it's about those people out there and other life forms that are getting affected by climate change. Indigenous people, biodiversity have to be reflected in whatever statements, whatever commitments our leaders make in go ahead and later. Thank you.
ค่ะคุณยินสิริธรรมค่ะจากเครือข่ายผู้บริโภคตรงนี้นะฮะก็อยากจะบอกว่าขณะนี้เนี่ยเกี่ยวกับเรื่องสภาวะโลกร้อนและการใช้พลังงานที่บ้าคลั่งขนาดนี้เนี่ยมันส่งผลให้เกิดการผันผวนนะในวิถีอาชีพและวิถีชีวิตอย่างเช่นชาวประมงเนี่ยฤดูกาลการไหลเวียนของน้ำเนี่ยเปลี่ยนหมดนะฮะฤดูกาลที่เราเคยทำมาหากินได้ก็หากินไม่ได้ถูกไหมฮะขณะนี้เนี่ยภูมิปัญญาถูกทำลายมากจากภาวะที่ภูมิอากาศมันผันแปรผลไม้ก็ไม่ออกตรงกับฤดูกาลนั่นเนี่ยเราคิดว่าข้อเสนออย่างหนึ่งที่จะลดภาวะโลกร้อนแล้วก็ลดภาวะที่มันเกิดขึ้นขนาดนี้ซึ่งชาวบ้านเองก็ไม่รู้ว่ามันเกิดอะไรขึ้นนะฮะมันทำร้ายไปหมดเนี่ยก็เลยมีข้อเสนอว่าเราน่าจะหยุดการเสนอให้อาเซียนเนี่ยหยุดการค้าขายถ่านหินเพราะว่ามันเป็นพลังงานที่ทำลายมวลหมู่มนุษยชาตินะฮะแล้วก็มันคือขณะนี้เนี่ยถ่านหินเนี่ยไม่ได้เอามาใช้แค่ในโรงงานไฟฟ้าแต่ถ่านหินเนี่ยมันลุกลามเข้าไปใช้ในโรงงานอุตสาหกรรมขนาดใหญ่ทั้งหมดนะฮะทั้งสมุทรสาครและระยองเพราะว่าเขาเอาถ่านหินเนี่ยมาใช้แทนน้ำมันเตาเพราะนั้นขณะนี้เนี่ยการแพร่ระบาดของสารพิษต่างๆเนี่ยครอบคลุมไปหมดทั้งคือพูดถึงในประเทศไทยนะเพราะนั้นสิ่งที่อยากจะนำเสนอก็คือเราก็สู้กันคือถ้าไม่หยุดการซื้อขายถ่านหินเนี่ยทุกพื้นที่ก็จะต้องสู้กันอย่างบ้าคลั่งขนาดนี้แล้วเราคิดว่าเราอยากจะนำเสนอให้เขากลับไปทบทวนนะฮะกลับไปเตรียมความพร้อมของชุมชนของประเทศของตัวเองก่อนว่าจริงๆแล้วให้หันกลับไปดูว่าประเทศของตัวเองเนี่ยพร้อมที่จะพัฒนาไปทางด้านไหนไม่ใช่พัฒนาตามตะวันตกอย่างบ้าคลั่งทุกวันนี้นะแล้วก็อยากให้เน้นเรื่องแผนพัฒนาประเทศอย่างมีส่วนร่วมของประชาชนเป็นตัวหลักนะเตรียมความพร้อมว่าประชาชนควรจะเป็นคนที่ชี้ว่าประเทศน่าจะพัฒนาไปทางด้านไหนไม่ใช่ให้นักการเมืองแล้วก็ในทุนต่างชาติเข้ามาครอบงำแล้วก็จุงจมูกให้ประเทศนั้นๆเนี่ยพัฒนาไปตามที่ประเทศทางตะวันตกต้องการคุณ
from the consumers group in Japan. She's just making two recommendations. The way the energy industry has been feeding on the resources, it has affected a lot of communities already. There have been struggles everywhere. So the only way to stop this is for ASEAN to stop coal trading. And the sustainable development. They must, governments in ASEAN must include people's participation and people's decision or aspirations to which way they want to go, without governments just following the earlier the modern development path. แต่จะพูดต้องออกมาข้างนอกนะคะมันไม่ถึงไม่ยืนตะโกนตอนนั้นแล้วขอสั้นๆเลยนะคะกับกรุณามีเวลาน้อยเจอเลยค่ะ
พี่น้องครับพี่น้องอาเซียนทั้งหมดนะครับขอได้ฝากนะครับแกนทั้งหมดนะครับมันเกิดมาเพราะอันนี้ใช่ไหมครับพี่น้องถ้าเรายกตัวอย่างนี้จากรัฐบาลไม่ว่ารัฐไหนทั่วโลกปัญหามันเกิดเพราะเราเลิกสิทธิ์จำกัดสิทธิ์ของพี่น้องประชาชนมันมีการใช้ทรัพยากรพลังงานเกินพอดีมีการทำลายล้างส่งผลกระทบถ้าหากเขาฟังประชาชนและพี่น้องอาเซียนเรานี้ที่รวมกันสามารถเสนอรัฐอาเซียนไม่ว่ารัฐระดับเลวหรือระดับสังคมนะครับที่ละเมิดสิทธิมนุษยชนละเมิดการทำลายล้างธรรมชาติสิ่งพวกนี้ไม่ควรเกิดที่มันเกิดจากอเมริกาอันนี้ไม่ได้หมายถึงประชาชนอเมริกาที่ดีนะครับรัฐอเมริกาที่บุกรุกเครื่องพลังงานเพื่อการผลิตและกำไรเท่านั้นประชาชนยุโรปหรือเอเชียอื่นๆรวมทั้งประเทศไทยเองที่บุกรุกเข้าไปทำลายทรัพยากรทำลายสภาพภูมิอากาศทุกสิ่งเป็นการทำลายล้างคุณภาพชีวิตของพี่น้องประชาชนทั่วโลกเพราะฉะนั้นเราในฐานะประชาชนอาเซียนวันนี้ต้องรวมกันหลักการให้มีการเปลี่ยนแปลงนโยบายที่จะต้องยุติกระบวนการต่างๆที่ทำลายหรือใช้พลังงานเกินพอดีอุตสาหกรรมเพื่อกำไรตัวเลขแท้จริงของถึงในประชาชนอาเซียนและทั่วโลกนะครับและต้องผลักดันให้เกิดการเปลี่ยนแปลงให้ได้พี่น้องเราวันนี้คนไทยและอาเซียนส่วนหนึ่งอยู่ได้โดยไม่ต้องพึ่งรัฐได้เราเกิดจนตายเราพึ่งเราช่วยกันเองได้แล้วลงมือเสร็จแล้วแต่วันนี้ต้องการให้โลกเราอยู่รอดจึงอยากให้การทำลายล้างการใช้พลังงานที่ทำให้เกิดผลเสียต่อภูมิอากาศของโลกจะต้องยุติลงหรือทำให้เบาบางที่สุดคนเชื้อชาติอื่นไม่ว่าในการในยุโรปหรือประเทศอื่นในเอเชียต้องไม่ดูถูกเรื่องเชื้อชาติศาสนาทุกคนเป็นมนุษย์หากคุณเป็นมนุษย์และคุณดูคนอื่นไม่เป็นมนุษย์คุณไม่ใช่มนุษย์คุณเป็นสัตว์นรกขอบคุณครับ
In summary, I said the whole thing boils down to governments in ASEAN who have never respected people's rights to participate in decision making. And that means that all the people of ASEAN will really have to struggle harder because right now we have been struggling for our own survival. But right now, we all have to feel that we are all struggling for the Earth's survival.
I just want to remind the process because in terms one objective of a workshop like this as well is if there's a point that we would like to raise to the ASEAN, a week from now there will be a civil society and ASEAN engagement, and at least 30 half hour
the potential impact already the impact of climate change. Because I think that's she thinks that that's not well known. And also the issue on industries, the push to build more industries, and also for energy industries, pushing other industries as well. This point is very much it affected Thailand because now Thailand wanted to be the hub of all the heavy industries and stuff. And there is iron smelting plant that is being protested against by the people. When they feel that this whole issue of development path, the new path of development, more sustainable development, has to be also raised to create public awareness. Any other, any more?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Pranamini Rai, and I'm from Nepal. Presently, I'm actually working for an Indigenous Peoples Organization, which is called AIPP, Asian Indigenous Peoples Pact Foundation, which is based in Chiang Mai. It also works on advocacy of the rights of Indigenous people in Asia. I'm glad I'm here, and I really like the speakers' presentations. It was really very good, and I kind of was very glad that you actually mentioned the rights of Indigenous peoples. I was actually at the UNFCCC conference for the COP14 in Poznan, which took place in December last year, from 1st to the 12th. And before that, I was also in that meeting. I was a part of the International Indigenous Peoples Forum on Climate Change. So we were all a group of Indigenous people from all over the world. And I must really say that the whole new context of the talk about climate change, the mitigations and on clean development mechanisms, implementations, and in particular to RED, which we were following up very closely, was like, if some of you must have been there, to see that at that international fora also, that the rights, the word rights, was excluded from the document, which was one of the substar documents. So for me, it is also to see that what we've been trying to do, lobby out there was to say that any kind of mechanism which affects the livelihoods of not only indigenous but local communities, which it will with the climate change, because whatever mechanisms they are looking at are going to be implemented on the lands and territories of local communities and indigenous people. So first and foremost, like some person also said, that it is very important to also ensure that there is a lot of participation of even those people knowing what's happening. You know, you're making policies at this big level. It also has to be a bottom-up approach. You know, we all are talking about this has to be done. You go to the village and you tell them, what is climate change? They don't know about it. They think maybe they did something wrong in their past life, that the climate is changing, you know? So it is really important to capacity build of indigenous communities and local communities when talking about climate change. I can't go to a committee and say we partner in RED. I don't know the concept of RED myself. You know, and now, like you said, there are a lot of funds, a lot of countries looking at projects for funding on mechanisms on the southern parts. It's open after the COP, everybody we were looking for funds. So I think it's very important, but one baseline is to say that whatever mechanism there is has to use the guidelines from the UN TRIB. I don't know how many people are aware of the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. We're talking about climate change. You know, it is not a legal binding document, but the General Assembly adopted the Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, where people have been fighting for more than 70 years to have the rights recognized, and it's still not being respected by the UNFCCC in their mechanism while addressing these issues. And then when everybody talks about that it is going to benefit the local communities and indigenous people, I wonder how it's going to address that. So if people at least adhere to the declaration that has been adopted by the General Assembly of the United Nations, we can not maybe get anywhere much, but it will be at least something. So I think it's very important to recognize that. Thank you.
The fight about including indigenous people's rights, that's which is not that already. Is there a chance to get this language into the agreement?
It's just that in this international forum also, what we are proposing is that at least any kind of mechanism that comes through should adhere to the rights, the UN Declaration, the UN TRIP. That's all. And if until you get that, whatever mechanisms that we're not sure whether it's going to benefit the local communities. It's not a rights-based approach.
This may be a crucial point because in fact, indigenous peoples millions, and then like
300 million.
Yeah.
And the mechanism is
Actually, it's interesting to know that the countries who refuse the word rights and who refuse to put in the guidelines for the country are the United States and Canada, New Zealand. So it's not any country in ASEAN for that matter. But whether any country in the ASEAN piggybacks right on those countries is everybody's guess, yeah? But it's very interesting that those who refuse the word rights and those who refuse the clause on that any mechanism must use the UNDRIP guidelines for indigenous people's protection are not the developing countries, once again. So that we have to understand as well. So if we know of our countries who actually support UNDRIP, like Indonesian government does support UNDRIP in principle, in implementation is a different case. So we sort of keep, supporting them to say that we must support this. So we need to find out what each of your countries' position is.
A lot of the countries are looking at requesting the southern countries to come up with climate change policies with their national strategy plan. So we don't think about it right now, and those strategies are made by southern countries.
So people can go back to the national level and find this out.
Good afternoon. I would like to jump on from the Shanghai Session Network. I would like to just share a little bit about the energy situation and when we are talking about the people participation in development and the energy sector. I think like when it comes to Burma, it's very hard when we are dealing with the military dictatorship. And right now, not only that the Burma Army commits all the human rights violations systematically, but one of the very big concern and crisis is the energy issue because even in 2004, the Burma Army think that they should have an alternative energy, so they force the people in everywhere to grow the jatropha. So people have to grow like in front of their house and then they cannot do any farming anymore. And so there are like 7 states and 7 divisions. In each state, the people have to grow 500,000 acres of the jatropha. And it's already started like all the land confiscation and the people have to buy the seeds, and everything until the process, but they have no idea where this one is leading, but for sure people are starving and everything already. And in Rangoon division, it took about 20% of the land of this. So it's something that we are very concerned and how we can raise this one, and in putting in what kind of mechanism or how people are going to raise about this. And so we are not, this one is a very worrying situation. Plus the regime also very eagerly pushing, under the push of the Asian Development Bank in terms of producing the hydropower in different ethnic areas. Like for example, in the Salween River, which is one last free-flowing river in the Southeast Asia. So one of the dams will produce 3,680 megawatts or more. And then there are about a series of dams, like 5 or 6, in different ethnic areas. So these people, most of them are now refugees or migrant workers in Thailand. So how we can link it, human rights, like ability to leadership, and how we can push that in terms of especially the concern of the energy, and it's actually making a big effect in the region and also I think internationally. And when, for example, Cyclone Nagis hit Burma, they just say, sorry, international community, just stop giving the aid for people, and then they didn't allow any people to go in until 2 weeks. So when all the disaster and anything happened, that is the response of the Burmese military regime. So it's something that really want your help and how we can push forward on this issue. Thank you.
For the meeting with ASEAN officials is a serious review of the ASEAN minerals policy or plan, particularly because we all know first, resource extraction is a major driver of the climate crisis we are experiencing. And second, because resource extraction, particularly mining, will intensify the already very bad conflict or land issues and access to our resources in many areas of the ASEAN. And then third, because it will increase the debt and financing problems of nations, particularly because World Bank providing loan facilities to clean up abandoned mines or provide financing for mineral extraction, rather than provide financing for restoration activities.
Can I just add something without getting up? I'll speak very, very loudly. Many of these countries don't have a national action plan on climate change. And I think that's one clear-cut demand we should make when we meet the representatives. That we should see national action plan for 10 countries and then a combined ASEAN action plan. Because we're talking about $140 billion per annum. This is the number that the civil society has arrived at from Oxfam and UNDPS. What is it that we require in the developing countries to combat climate change? And of the $140 billion, these are about my numbers, like I said, UNDP, Oxfam. $50 billion should go to adaptation, $40 billion to halt deforestation, and $50 billion for mitigation, which is your energy sector, primarily, and political stuff. Now, to be able to get this money, these guys have to get their act together. When we keep demanding, the onus is on the developed world to pay for our problems, but without, or even on the red, the first few Indonesian experiments, so to speak, the first money that came for red proposals from Australia and Norway were not implemented because corruption was a big issue, and corruption will remain a big issue in many of our countries as to whether these funds will be dispersed and used properly. And without action plan, I don't think we will even be able to make a dent at UNFCCC with the developed countries that are saying, no, we are not going to do anything. So I think it's very important that we ask ASEAN leaders to be very clear of what they want and what they will come in terms of what we've already said, that developed parts of our region should also come into some emission reduction.
Seems to have specific proposals for ASEAN. I think we have there's a lot of these already being tabled. And to make it a dialogue, if anybody object to whatever anybody proposed, I think we should say it now, because otherwise it will go down as a recommendation for this workshop to ASEAN. Because I suppose anybody has objection to anything said before now about what ASEAN should do. Yeah. I was just checking that, if you have different views, please raise them.
My name is Yang. I'm from the south of Thailand.
Yes, my name is Yang. I'm from the southern Thailand. I want to propose just one thing: is kind of the in comply with the law in the state, in each state of ASEAN. If you think the climate change should be to be part of the strategic environmental, health, society, and human rights assessment in part of the environmental law in Thailand. But I don't know what other country, what kind of the law mechanism in each state should comply with that. Because it's maybe the guideline or the action plan of the ASEAN maybe just affect to the state, each state to comply with and to control and to evaluate any project or any development plan that the government just try to push it up. For example, in the southern of Thailand, the government plan to expand the petrochemical industry, coal mining or other to be expanded, industrialization to expand the growing up the economic growth in the Southeast Asia and South Asia and things like that. But I think because this mechanism can help the local people to monitor the projects or development plan. And if you can, and not have the knowledge about how to assess the climate change in part of any project will be happening in the future. But I would like to know that in Indonesia or other countries, you have the guideline of the climate change assessment in part of the strategic area of development plan or any project. Because this is the maybe in Thailand we can just to campaign about to put it in the law.
My name is Siti Maimuna from Mining Advocacy Network, Indonesia. So today we just have the workshop on ASEAN and mining workshop. And the fact is the mineral extraction, including coal, is increasing in our region. So I mean, it's like Jamlani said that there is no relation actually, the climate initiative and the business as usual in our region. This is the first. The second is why there is the carbon mechanism or something like that is really crowded than for example, the initiative of local communities or how the reduction of emissions, for example. Why is it? Why are we not coming with, like, for example, stop trading coal, for example, in Indonesia? The second region, the largest production of the coal, more than 100 million tons per year. 70% is exporting in 14 countries. And the region is just use 1.06% of their coal production. So if, for example, Indonesia just, to stop for exporting, it will be better than now, actually. And something that we must concern also is about, the new global protocol. I mean, it's not just the carbon offset, but also biodiversity offset that starting everywhere. There is many international NGOs lobbying our local governments, for example, in Papua, in Aceh, to proposing, the mechanism like that, even if it is not involving the indigenous people, but the broker is going everywhere. How we can working on it really hardly, because we can polite anymore at the moment actually when the everything is continuous. But something that I want to suggest that is it possible to have truly learning session or something like that between us, really, the ASEAN, to really looking deeply what actually that we're facing at the moment. I mean, the something that Kira Jamtani mentioned, that how ASEAN can not really following the pathway of the North country. It's not working actually. I mean, from the workshop today, it's we get evidence that mineral extracting increasing in ASEAN region, and the farmers, the fishery is left behind. So is it possible for us to really, I don't know, there is the working group or working team and really sharing deeply about our situation in ASEAN and really read that, and it's not just we can read we can make it the same cloudy like a carbon mechanism. Thank you.
What you said just reminded me that there are brokers already working on with this carbon credit and CDM and whatnot, and we just told like a community like out in the Northeast has been approached for forest to trade their forest for credit. And so in fact, while the negotiations still going on, the Kyoto mechanism is actually working, and these are market-based mechanisms already reaching to the communities. So definitely there is, as you said, learning lessons or sharing information. People have to be aware of what's happening now. Okay, and then